Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Heston, back with a brand new episode here in The Truth, back once again with my brother Lucas. And today we are going to be talking about relief pitchers. If you missed the last show, we talked about starting pitchers. And again, this is our positional preview rankings. Basically, we're going to give you guys our top 10 at each position, and we're going to highlight 3 on each side to give you guys 6 total. A lot of the players that we have on the rankings are basically on each other's rankings. There's some guys that are on, some guys that aren't. I try to highlight guys that were either in a similar position on the rankings itself, or maybe a guy that was on a ranking on one but not on the other. The bottom line is the whole purpose of this series, it's the final series before the fantasy baseball season, is to really give you guys an in-depth analysis on a lot of these guys, especially an important position like relief pitchers. I mean, my philosophy in the draft is to go out and get relief pitchers early, especially in our league where we have 2 relief pitcher spots. There's obviously 30 teams in baseball. And I feel like 22, 23 have consistent good closers. You do the math. I mean, that's like 11 teams right there. I know you took away a closer for your keeper, which sucks, in Emmanuel Clase, but there are still a lot of good closers out there. And I was looking at your list, and I'll preview it here in a second, but some interesting names at some interesting spots. I'm curious to see kind of your take on that. But anyways, with that said, I actually remembered this time to go ahead and read you the top 10 for each position on each of our rankings. And then we'll dive into some spots as to why you have guys at certain rankings. So for you, your relief pitcher 1, Devin Williams, now on the Yankees, Edwin Diaz and the Mets, going with the New York theme there at the top. Manuel Clase at the 3, Ryan Helsley of St. Louis at the 4, Mason Miller, Athletics at the 5, Josh Hader, Houston at 6, Raisel Iglesias, Atlanta at 7, Felix Bautista at 8 from Baltimore, Andres Munoz, Seattle, number 9, and Robert Suarez, the Padres, number 10. As far as my rankings for relief pitching, it's actually extremely similar to what Lucas had there. The only difference is, as far as I'm just going to go with guys off the list because I don't really feel like going too far on there. I ended up kicking off Raisel Iglesias, and I added Ryan Walker, from San Francisco. And then I also clicked off Andres Munoz, and I added Johan Duran, the legend himself. So we'll talk more about those guys a little bit later. But why don't you go ahead and kick off your first relief pitcher that you have on here in Devin Williams at the number 1 spot?
Yeah, this one might be a little bit of a hot take because I feel the general consensus is that Emmanuel Clase is the number 1 guy. And honestly, I could see the argument that he is. I mean, I kept him. I think it might just be hating the Guardians bias. Like, he has amazing stuff again, but we're not talking about him. Devin Williams has had a really interesting career. Of course, started in Milwaukee, now with the Yankees. Of course, shaved his beard before they changed the policy. But last year, he only pitched in 22 games. He had a 1.25 ERA. That was due to the stretch fractures he had in his back. He also missed a postseason a couple years ago because of injury, so that's definitely the concern, injury. But when he's been healthy, he's been really good. I mean, one of his best years, at least that popped out to me, 2022, 60.2 innings, 96 strikeouts, 30 walks, and he's getting you 15 saves. And then 2023, he got 36 saves, 58 innings, and he has really good stuff. I mean, you're seeing that when he's throwing almost 60 innings, he's giving up 10 earned runs. And the past 3 years, I should say, he's had an under 2 ERA. And that's really interesting, especially for the Yankees is going to be different because Yankees, of course, always field a really solid ball club. They're going to have a lot of save opportunities, really interesting bullpen situation they got going on. But the question is, can Williams stay healthy? He threw 65 games in 22, 61 in 23, but again, 22 last year. If he can stay healthy, I think he is probably the number 1 fantasy pitcher in terms of relief. That's why I had him number 1. But in terms of other systems, they have him all at number 2 and number 3. So you can kind of see Clase is the number 1 guy in most minds, but I think Williams is the number 1 guy. And I think Williams is still kind of not like a household name. Like, it would probably take the average baseball fan a little bit to think about, oh, who's the Brewers closer? Who's the Yankees closer now? Like, I just think that he's kind of under-recognized. But again, really good stuff, really good changeup. I mean, 2020, he had a .33 ERA. Like, that's all I got to say there. Only 22 games, but still, just crazy.
Yeah, so for me, obviously looking at a guy like Devin Williams, I do like Devin Williams. I mean, obviously, lethal card and MLB The Show, everyone knows that. He also had good success there in Milwaukee, and when you're going over to a team like New York, you know there's going to be a lot of winnable games. So I think the save opportunities are amplified there. But on top of that, there's also the flip side of that, right? Save opportunities are ample there, but if he, blows a couple of saves, especially back to back, they have a lot of other options that they could potentially turn to. So there is some risk involved with that, but there's risk involved with everybody. For those reasons, I had put Devin Williams at the 6th spot. I don't know. Like, I know obviously he had success in Milwaukee. I more so feel like I want to see the success in New York. I obviously will draft him if he's available just because it is Devin Williams, but it is one of those things that we have to monitor, especially early on. For me, I'm going to go with Edwin Diaz. We both have him at the number 2 spot, so I figured that'd be a good name to talk about. Obviously, Edwin Diaz, everyone knows him, the Timmy Trumpets, everything, the whole 9 yards there. Obviously missed 2023 due to an injury sustained at the World Baseball Classic. Everyone also knows that. But looking at 2022, like the year before that going into that, I had 62 innings pitched, okay, which was tremendous, right? He had a 1.31 ERA, 0.84 whip, and had a K to walk ratio of 6.6. That's 118 Ks to 18 walks. He also had 32 saves to the 3 blown saves. Now, Edwin Diaz is a guy that's lights out, has tons of pop, good fastball, lively slider. He's also one of those guys, though, that has an interesting complexion with saves to blown saves. He's also one of those guys that blows 6, 7, 8 saves a year and can come away with as high as 57, which he did in 2018 with the Mariners. So you never really know what you're going to get, but what I know I'm going to get from him is I'm going to get Ks. I'm going to get the save opportunities being in New York on the other side of town there with the Mets. And I think, too, like last year in his first year back from injury, finished in 53 2/3. The whip was still there. Whip's really the only thing I look at as far as between whip and ERA, because when you look at relief pitcher stats, you can't really look at them because they're so inflated. You have one bad outing and you look like the worst pitcher that's ever graced Major League Baseball. So it's really hard to sustain that good, whip ERA. I don't really pay attention to that. I pay attention to the K to walk ratio and whip, and he has pretty good whip at 1.04, has the Ks, lights out stuff, and I think he's going to be a lethal closer, get back to his old ways, and be a consistent closer and a lot of winnable games for the Mets. All right, looking at your next guy here, dropping all the way down to number 8. Why don't you go ahead and talk about him?
Yeah, number 8 guy is Felix Bautista in Baltimore. He just made his debut in terms of spring training 2 days ago. 556 days removed from his last outing, so that's a big concern there is injury. Obviously arm problems, but he was amazing in the 2 seasons he's been in the league. I mean, 2023 especially, 1.48 ERA. He was 8-2, 56 games, 33 saves. Did blow 6, but that's kind of what you get with a guy like Bautista. Like, he has electric stuff, but with electric stuff sometimes comes crazy control. 110 strikeouts, 26 walks, 144 opponent batting average. And the year before, he was 167 opponent batting average. Again, that was only I shouldn't say that was only. He was in more games. He was in 65 games in 2022. Had less save opportunities, but a better opponent batting average. So you know what you're going to get with Bautista. He has electric stuff, but the big question is, okay, he hasn't pitched in a year, and the Orioles are kind of falling off in terms of hype, most because he can't win a playoff game. But the team, they're just losing guys like Anthony Santander, so they're kind of making an interesting shift. But Bautista, assuming he doesn't get hurt, he should be the closer in Baltimore. AL East, electric stuff, amazing stuff. He will get you lots of strikeouts for a relief pitcher, which I think is important, and a lot of saves. So if he's on, I think he's probably one of the top 5 relievers in the game. But the question is, will he be on? I think he will, and I think a lot of fantasy organizations do too. They have him at 8 and 9, very similar to me. I really like Bautista. I love his stuff. Does nothing crazy. He just throws 101 miles an hour and just gets people out, and it works. So that's why I have him number 8.
He's a big boy as well. I have him in a similar spot there at number 7. Again, I think there's a lot of risk. Obviously, you mentioned 556 days or some days since, removed from his last outing. That's a really long time. And so I think it's one of those things that we know the talent's there. We know like the upsides there being in Baltimore, but it might take a while to get back to being integrated in that closer role. And it might go through some struggles, which could drastically hurt your team, especially if you're in one of those roto leagues. But no question about it. I think by at least the midway point of the season, end of the season, he could be one of those guys that's back into the mix as one of the top closers for fantasy. And one of the best closers, I had to fact check this because I couldn't remember off the top of my head, that I'm going to talk about is my number 3 guy, and it's Ryan Helsley. Ryan Helsley led the league in saves last year at 49. Class A had 47. And last year for the Cardinals in 65 games, had 66 and a third innings pitched, 2.04 ERA, 1.1 whip, 79 Ks at 23 walks, 49 saves to 4 blown saves. Like, bottom line, tremendous season for him. I think people were expecting him to kind of step up and kind of have success, with 14 saves in 23 and 19 and 22. But I don't think people were really that, I guess, anticipating the success that he had last season. Again, this Cardinals team is one of those teams you never really know what they're going to do. They seem to be year in and year out. They've seemed to win games just because that's how they always have done it. But regardless, seeing a lot of Cardinals games, they're always going to be playing in those 1, 2-run, 3-run games. Like, they always seem to be playing in those. And that's why he had so many opportunities to get the save. And also, he had gone through some times where he'd get 3, 4 saves in a row that there'd be other guys that got save opportunities. So the save opportunities for playing for the Cardinals is going to be plentiful. Ryan Helsley is a guy that's proven time in and time out. I mean, this is 3 years of really good baseball and really good kind of maximizing his role there in St. Louis. I'm not saying they're going to go win a World Series and go win 100 games this year, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. And when they're in a winnable game, chances are it's going to be 3 runs or less, which will be another save opportunity for your fantasy team. All right, and then finally, the last guy I have highlighted for you is your number 9 guy.
Yeah, my number 9 guy is Andres Munoz in Seattle. His numbers don't really jump off the page as much as other guys did, but I think the other guys are just amazing. That's what's going to happen. He's been really consistent the last 3 years. 64 games in 22, 52 in 23, 60 in 24. He will get you a little less saves, or at least has the last 2 years, 22 in 2024 and 13 in 2023. But again, really good stuff, and he has the potential to be a really elite closer. 59.1 innings last year, 77 strikeouts, 22 walks, and the opponent batting average also really stands out. I know that's not a measure in leagues, but 153 in his career in 5 seasons, he has a 186 opponent batting average, and that's just pretty amazing. I mean, he did pitch 1 game in 2021, but still, really good year last year. The record doesn't show it, but that's just what happens with relievers. A lot of fantasy websites have the same kind of thing, number 9, number 10. I think he's a number 9 guy. Again, you could probably interchange him at number 10. He just has good stuff, and he has a really electric fastball, a sinker, kind of a little bit of a funky delivery. He's kind of like throwing from up here. I don't know how to really describe it, but he's not a typical relief pitcher or closing pitcher in terms of just how he throws. But again, really good pitcher. He'll get you innings. He'll get you strikeouts. To me, he'll get you consistency, which is what's one of the most important things. Because, I mean, if your closer is having a bad month, that really hurts you fantasy-wise, and you know that Munoz may not be always up here all the time, but he'll be up here and he won't be dipping below. So that's why I have him at number 9.
I just haven't been a big Munoz guy. I mean, I don't know. I think, yeah, he's a good closer. I mean, but I just have never been a big enough guy to really want to rank him where I do. For me, my final guy I have at number 4 is going to be Josh Hader. Now, Josh Hader, I love Josh Hader. I'm a big Josh Hader fan. Last year, I think was, very not expected, like Josh Hader, especially the 3.8 ERA. But he had a .96 whip, which is really good. 105 Ks to 25 walks. Had 34 saves to 4 blown saves. I mean, this is a guy that's super lights out, kind of like Edwin Diaz, like tremendous strikeout stuff. If he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit hard, and it's going to be like 1 out, 6 earned runs, like just absolutely like loads up the bases, gives up a jack. But he's going to be playing on a weirdly struck Houston Astros team, missing a couple players from before. This isn't going to be an Astros team that's making the ALCS every year. It's going to be an interesting team. But again, he's got lights out stuff. He's a tremendous closer. He's bounced around from Milwaukee to San Diego and now to Houston. I think also partially last year was kind of needing to get adjusted a little bit. I mean, when you look at San Diego in that first season when he got traded at the deadline, in 19 appearances for San Diego in 2022, he had a 7.3 run, 1 ERA, 1.63 whip, a 2.4 K to walk ratio. It wasn't good. So I think the first season is one of those seasons where a lot of people might want to back away, but that's just kind of how Josh Hader's always been. And I think he'll get back to the 30 plus saves, lower to maybe 2 or 3 blown saves, and just be a guy that's consistent for the Astros time in and time out. Well, thank you guys for listening to another episode here on The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter at The Truth as one to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports, AZ, and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity while also maintaining ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15, for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, the one who led the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by my brother. Take care and good night.